On Building a Tenor Guitar Part 8, see how the rosette is inlaid into the guitar top. I've taken a compass and going from my blueprint, I've traced out the approximate diameters of the sound hole and the rosette, laid them out on the guitar, so the rosette will set just about right there. I had previously marked the center line of the guitar. On the blueprint I measured from the top of the guitar down to the center of the sound hole, transferred that measurement onto the soundboard, and then I took an awl and made a little mark with an awl there. So everything that I'll do to inlay the channel, I'll be working off this point where I made with an awl. I'll set up a test piece of wood using plywood. I'll actually make all my cuts in that plywood before I make them in my soundboard. So I'll set up my router on that plywood, fit my rosette to that plywood, and once I know I have the settings that I want on my circle cutting jig on the test piece of plywood, then I'll route the same in the soundboard. Next, I'll set up my router circle cutting jig to cut the inlay channel for the rosette. Now, the rosette inside diameter is roughly 3.5 inches, so I need to set my circle cutting jig up to cut that 1 3/4 inch radius. Here's the bottom of the jig, and I'll be using gauge blocks to set this up. My radius needs to be from inside edge of this router bit to the center of my pivot point. So to start out, I will, using gauge blocks, this block is called a 1, 2, 3 block, and that's because it's 1 inch thick, 2 inches wide, and 3 inches long. So I'll put it on the inch side. Here's a 3/4 inch gauge block. So there's my 1 3/4. I just have that resting on my router bit. I'll slide my pivot pin down against there and tighten that up. There's the 1 3/4. That's why I like using gauge blocks. That would be a lot more difficult to do with a ruler. Now, I haven't accounted for the thickness of my pivot point, and I know that this screw that I used for my pivot point is 3/16 of an inch in diameter, so that would be half of that would be 3/32 of an inch. So I need to come in 3/32 of an inch. Okay, I don't have anything to measure 3/32 of an inch, but I do have something I can measure 2/32 of an inch, or 1/16. So what I've done is, using this gauge block just as a stop, I've put it against my pivot point and clamped it in place so I have a reference. I'm going to slide this down slightly and put a 1/16 inch gauge block in there. So that's 1/16 or 2/32 of an inch. So now I've moved my pivot point in 2/32. I needed to go 3/32 in order to get to that 1 3/4 radius that I wanted. However, my strategy for inlaying this rosette will be to actually not go to my finished diameter to go something less than that finished diameter, and then slowly sneak up onto it until my rosette just fits. Because, as I said, the rosette's not a perfectly circular diameter. It is off by a few thousandths around its diameter. So what I have here now is an 1 3/4 radius minus a 32nd of an inch. So that 32nd of an inch gives me some room to kind of sneak up on that final diameter, and I'll do that just by cutting that channel and trying to fit the rosette in there. If it doesn't fit, I'll just slowly remove this in a few thousandths of an inch increments, and I'll show you how I do that as I go along. One last thing that I need to do is set the depth of cut of my plunge router, and I want to cut the depth to the same thickness as my rosette. So I have my jig setting on my rosette, and I'll just plunge my router down until it just touches the surface of the wood, and that's how deep I want to cut my channel. I'll set my depth gauge to there, and that will give me a channel that's exactly the depth of the thickness of my rosette. I'm ready to make my first test cut. So here's the test cut that I made. It looks like it's very slightly too small of a diameter. Looks like literally just a few thousandths of an inch. So what I need to do is increase the diameter of my cut and make another test cut. Okay, I want to increase the diameter of my cut, so I've just clamped my gauge block against my pivot pin as a reference, and I told you before I would show you how I just move it a few thousandths of an inch. I've just got a 20 thousandths of an inch feeler gauge. Let's lift this up, drop it down on that feeler gauge, tighten that back up, and now I've moved my pivot point 20 thousandths of an inch. Okay, something I should have done before I made the first cut, and I went back and did, is just cut out some excess room to make a channel for the rosette to sit in. I don't really care about this outside diameter right now. I'm just concerned with the inside diameter. And after that last cut, adjusting that 20 thousandths of an inch, my rosette just won't quite fit on there. I'm almost there. I just need to move it just the slightest amount in to fit. So I need to reduce my diameter very slightly. I'll clamp my gauge block up against my pivot pin, slide this 2 thousandths of an inch feeler gauge in there, reset it 2 thousandths of an inch smaller diameter, and make another cut. Okay, I made that cut by reducing the diameter 2 thousandths of an inch, and I am just barely lacking fitting that rosette into this channel. So I don't want to reduce any more the diameter. My soundboard set up. First thing I'll do is drill a hole for the router pivot point to pivot on. So place that in the hole that I just drilled, and make this first cut. good. So there's the channel I just cut. So now I'll set up on my test piece to cut this outer channel. Next, I'll set up the router to cut the outside perimeter of the rosette channel using the same technique as I did for cutting the inside channel. I have this set up to make the first cut on the outside diameter. That's good. I'm too small, which is where I want to be. So what I'll do is slowly cut that out, slowly increasing my diameter until the rosette fits into that channel. What I'll do next is make that cut in my soundboard and place the rosette on there, make sure it looks okay, and then I'll just route out between the two channels that I've made in my soundboard to fit the rosette in there. That looks like that'll just fit in here, so now I'll just move my router bit over, reduce the diameter about 1/4 of an inch, and then just clean out this center part of this channel. The outside's fitting in fine. The inside diameter is as I knew, just barely catching there a little bit. So I'll just work on the inside surface of this just a little bit. I think it will drop right down in there. Okay, I'm ready to glue in the rosette. So I'm going to spread some glue in there and place the rosette in the channel. Just got a piece of cardboard with packing tape on it so it won't stick. I'll place that over the rosette to protect it. I'll put a piece of plywood on that, and then I'll set a weight on top of that to clamp it until it dries. Okay, I took the weight off and got a little glue squeeze out on here. What I'll do next is take this over to the bandsaw and cut out the profile. Then I'm going to go over the thickness sander, sand this rosette flush with the surface of the top. Unfortunately, my battery on my camera ran down while I was bandsawing the top, so I went ahead and cut the profile of the top out, and I also ran the top through the thickness sander to bring the rosette down flush with the guitar top. So here's a picture of the top after I ran it through the sander. And here are some close-up views of the rosette. On part 9, I'll be cutting the heel and the end blocks and bending the guitar sides. For woodworking plans, tips, and techniques, visit randallprice.com.